The spotlight didn't fade all at once. It dimmed slowly, almost imperceptibly, like a candle fighting against the draft. Before we dive in, look just below this video. You'll see a red button that says subscribe. If you press it now, you won't miss the rest of Bruce's journey. It was on set, in the middle of filming, when the first whispers appeared. Crew members noticed Bruce pausing longer than usual between lines. Sometimes he repeated himself. Sometimes the right word slipped just out of reach. At first, it seemed like exhaustion. After all, he had worked tirelessly for decades, carrying action films on his back. But the pauses grew heavier, the frowns deeper. For a man who had built an empire on timing, comic timing, dramatic timing, the heartbeat of an action scene, losing words was like losing oxygen. Dialogue that once rolled effortlessly now came fractured, halting, uncertain. The public didn't see it yet. On the screen, Bruce still looked like the indestructible everyman hero. But behind the camera, a quiet storm was beginning. Emma, his wife, noticed it first at home. Small hesitations in conversation, a sudden blank stare when asked a simple question, a sentence that trailed into silence. These were not mistakes, they were signals. The first signs of a cruel intruder, one that couldn't be punched, outwitted, or escaped. And so the story of Bruce Willis's final role began. Not with explosions or gunfire, but with whispers, silences, and the creeping shadow of something no one could yet name. By March 2022, the whispers had grown too loud to ignore. What began as forgotten words on set had become full sentences lost in midair, conversations left unfinished. The man who once delivered lines that echoed across generations, yippee-ki-yay, was now struggling to piece together the simplest phrases. Then came the announcement. A single statement released by his family, brief and clinical. Bruce Willis was stepping away from acting. The reason? Aphasia. A word most of the world had never heard until that day. For millions of fans, it was shocking. For his loved ones, it was confirmation of a fear they had quietly carried for years. Aphasia is not just forgetting. It is being present, yet locked away. The thought is there, the feeling is there, but the bridge between mouth and mouth collapses. For an actor whose entire craft depends on voice, on timing, on words, there could be no crueler thief. Hollywood reacted with sorrow. Tributes poured in. Clips of Die Hard and The Sixth Sense filled social media. Fans wrote that Bruce was the reason they believed ordinary men could be heroes. Yet behind closed doors, the mood was different. Emma sat with their children, explaining why Daddy couldn't work anymore, why he sometimes grew frustrated when the words would not come. Bruce himself seemed caught in the middle, his body strong, his smile intact, but his sentences broken. There were moments of laughter, moments of music, moments of silence so heavy it filled the room. The curtain had fallen, not on his life, but on the stage he had ruled for decades. For the first time, Bruce Willis, the man who had always fought back, had to walk away. And the world waited to see. Was this the end of the story, or just the beginning of a more painful, more human chapter? For months, the word aphasia carried the weight of mystery. Fans whispered it, reporters printed it, doctors explained it on late-night television. But for the Willis family, aphasia was not just a diagnosis. It was a doorway to something larger, something darker. By early 2023, that doorway had a name: frontotemporal dementia, 3 words that rearranged the family's world. Unlike Alzheimer's, which erases memory slowly, frontotemporal dementia attacks personality, behavior, and language first. It is not just forgetting a name or losing a key, it is watching the very essence of a person begin to change. Emma Heming Willis described it with heartbreaking clarity. His body is still strong, but his brain is leaving him. The man who had once been so quick with a joke, so sharp with a line, was now shifting in ways that were difficult for his loved ones to comprehend. Sometimes he was present, smiling with that mischievous twinkle. Other times, he was distant, unreachable, as if a glass wall had risen between him and the people who loved him most. The diagnosis did something strange to time. For fans, it was another headline, another tragedy in Hollywood's long list of fallen icons. But for the family, every day became both heavier and more precious. A simple breakfast, a shared laugh, even a few seconds of recognition. These moments became treasures. Because dementia is not a straight line. It is a tide, pulling in and out without warning. One day, Bruce's eyes sparkled with recognition. The next day, silence. Demi Moore, his ex-wife and lifelong friend, spoke publicly with compassion. It's difficult to see such a vibrant man shift in this way, but love doesn't end. It just changes form. Her words captured the truth. What once was spoken in scripts and applause now had to be spoken through gestures, patience, and presence. And yet, within the sadness, there was resilience. Emma began shaping their home into a sanctuary. One level, no stairs, wide hallways, soft lighting, and space for caretakers. The house became both fortress and stage, not for the movies, but for life itself. The man who had once fought terrorists on the 40th floor was now fighting an invisible war inside his own mind. And while the world could no longer hear Bruce's voice on the screen, his family learned to listen differently, to a smile, a hand squeeze, a flicker of recognition, to the twinkle that had not yet gone out. The diagnosis was not the end of Bruce Willis's story. It was the script for a new one, a story no one had chosen, but one that would reveal the strength of those who stood by him when the words were gone. Hollywood once wrote his lines. Directors shouted, cameras rolled, and Bruce Willis delivered dialogue that millions memorized. But in the years after his diagnosis, the script changed. There was no director here, no lights, no action, only life. Unpredictable, but fragile and raw. Emma Heming Willis took on the role of both partner and protector. She transformed their home into a safe haven, a place designed not for red carpets, but for quiet routines. A single-story house with soft lighting and familiar spaces became Bruce's stage. The halls were wide enough for caretakers to move, the rooms gentle in their simplicity. No clutter, no confusion, just calm. Here, the rhythm of the day slowed. Mornings began with sunlight spilling through the windows. Bruce sitting by the glass as if chasing the warmth of the outside world. Sometimes he hummed. Sometimes he was silent. The children passed through with school bags, stopping for a kiss or a hug. For them, every embrace carried weight, because they knew there would come a day when recognition might slip away. At lunch, Emma encouraged small rituals, a favorite meal, music playing softly in the background. Even when words failed, melodies could still reach him. His fingers drummed against the table, faint echoes of the rhythm that once guided his performances. Afternoons were unpredictable. Some days, Bruce walked through the garden, touching the flowers, pausing to watch the wind move the trees. Other days, fatigue wrapped him in silence, and he sat motionless, lost in a world his family could no longer enter. But Emma learned to read his silence, to see meaning in a shift of the eyes, in the squeeze of a hand. Evenings brought the family together. Around the dinner table, laughter mixed with tears. The children told stories from school, sometimes speaking louder, sometimes repeating themselves, hoping their father might catch the thread of the conversation. And when he smiled, just a small curve of the lips, it was enough to make the whole room breathe again. But this was no longer the life of an action hero, no longer the rush of Hollywood premieres. It was a quieter life, slower, but filled with moments that mattered. Each smile was an award, each embrace a standing ovation. For Bruce Willis, the stage had shifted. The world outside still remembered John McClane, the wisecracking savior of skyscrapers. But inside his home, the script was about survival, love, and the fragile beauty of now. In a world built on language, silence can feel like a prison. But for Bruce Willis and his family, silence became a new kind of language, fragile, unspoken, yet deeply human. Emma Hemming Willis often spoke about the twinkle. It was her word for the fleeting spark in Bruce's eyes, a glimmer that cut through the fog of dementia. Words might have vanished, but the twinkle remained, a reminder that somewhere inside, Bruce was still present. One evening, the family gathered in the living room. The television was on, playing one of Bruce's old films. The children giggled when they saw their father on the screen, younger, louder, unstoppable. Bruce watched too, his head tilted, his lips parting just slightly. No words came, but then it happened. A flicker. His eyes lit up, his hands squeezed Emma's, and for a heartbeat, it felt like recognition. That tiny spark carried the weight of 1,000 sentences. In the kitchen, it happened again. Emma handed him a glass of water, and instead of just taking it, he looked into her eyes and smiled, a smile that needed no translation. For her, that was communication. That was love, unbroken. Music played an unexpected role. Sometimes Emma put on old jazz records or the songs that had once filled their home during happier times. Bruce's foot would tap, his fingers drumming gently against the chair. No lyrics, no voice. But rhythm was a bridge that dementia could not burn. Even the smallest gestures carried power. A head nod, a raised eyebrow, a quiet chuckle that escaped without reason. Each one was like finding sunlight in the middle of a storm. The family learned to celebrate these fragments. They no longer measured conversations in paragraphs, but in moments, seconds of connection that felt like lifetimes. In a world that once demanded Bruce to be larger than life, he was now teaching a different lesson, that humanity is not found in the size of your words, but in the depth of your presence. And in every twinkle, every smile, every squeeze of the hand, Bruce Willis was still telling a story, not through scripts or lines, but through love, carried silently across the spaces where language had once lived. No man fights dementia alone. Around Bruce Willis, an invisible circle had formed, a family bound together not by fame or fortune, but by love, duty, and an unshakable loyalty. At the center was Emma Hemming Willis, his wife. Once a partner in life's adventures, she now carried the weight of nurse, protector, and anchor. She rose early, not just to prepare breakfast, but to prepare herself for the unknowns of the day. Would Bruce be alert today, smiling and walking through the garden? Or would he be distant, silent, unreachable? Emma never knew. But every day, she chose to stay, to fight, to love. Her words in interviews carried both strength and exhaustion. It's not just his journey, it's ours. Dementia changes the whole family. Behind that honesty was a quiet heroism. When critics questioned her choices, such as arranging separate homes to give their daughters stability, she stood firm. She understood something the world often forgot. Care is not about appearances, but about survival. Then there were the daughters, too young to carry such heavy truths, yet wise enough to feel the shift in their father. They learned to read his silences, to treasure every smile he gave them. For them, bedtime stories were no longer about fairy tales. They were about holding on to the sound of his voice while it was still there. And standing just outside that circle, yet very much within it, was Demi Moore, Bruce's ex-wife and lifelong friend. Hollywood rarely tells stories of ex-lovers who become allies, but this was different. Demi spoke with compassion, calling Emma's devotion remarkable, and reminding the world that Bruce was still Bruce, even in silence. She visited, she supported, she honored the man she once loved, and in doing so, she helped hold the circle together. Together, they created what Emma called a new normal. The old world of premieres, interviews, and red carpets had vanished. In its place stood a quiet, patient rhythm. Caretakers moving gently through the house, daughters tiptoeing into their father's study, Emma sitting by his side with a hand on his shoulder, Demi offering words of solidarity from afar. In that circle, there was grief, yes, but there was also resilience. For while dementia could strip away language, it could not touch love. And it was love that kept the circle unbroken. Dementia does not move in straight lines. It comes like the tide, one moment gentle, the next overwhelming. For Bruce Willis and his family, life became a rhythm of open days and closed ones. On the open days, Bruce was present. His smile lingered longer, his eyes followed conversation, and sometimes, miraculously, he found a word, a simple yes, a whispered laugh, or the sudden sparkle Emma called the twinkle. On those days, hope returned. His daughters leaned closer, hungry for more, memorizing every syllable as if it were treasure. But then came the closed days, days when silence wrapped around him like heavy fog. He would stare past his family, lost in a place they could not reach. Questions went unanswered. Music played without reaction. Even the gentle touch of Emma's hand sometimes failed to bring him back. For those closest to him, these days felt like mourning someone who was still alive. Personality shifts came too. Once playful and quick with a joke, Bruce could now grow restless, frustrated, even withdrawn. The man who had commanded film sets with confidence sometimes seemed frightened by the simplest changes in his surroundings. A moved chair, a new face, a forgotten routine. Each disruption could tip the balance of the day. Emma described it best. Some days I see my husband, some days I see only the illness. Yet she never stopped showing up. never stopped believing that behind the fog, Bruce was still there. The children adapted too, learning patience beyond their years. They spoke softly, repeated gently, celebrated every small victory. For friends and fans on the outside, Bruce Willis remained the eternal action hero. But for his family, he was now both hero and patient, present and absent, light and shadow. Every day was a gamble. Would the tide bring him closer or carry him farther away? Still, in both the open and the closed days, one truth remained constant. Love did not vanish. Even in silence, even in change, the bond between Bruce and his family endured, fragile but unbroken. Every journey has an ending, though not always the one we expect. For Bruce Willis, the final chapter is not about box office numbers or blockbuster stunts. It is about something quieter, deeper, more human. The courage to live in the present, even as the future slips away. Emma Heming Willis titled her memoir, The Unexpected Journey, and that is what this has been. A journey no script could prepare for, no director could guide. It is a story of resilience, born from heartbreak, of a family learning to love without words, and of a man whose legacy shines even when his voice has faded. Bruce once played characters who saved skyscrapers, planets, even the world itself. But perhaps his most profound role is this one, teaching us that heroism isn't just found in explosions and gunfire. Sometimes it's found in a smile shared at the dinner table, in the squeeze of a hand, in the flicker of recognition on a difficult day. His daughters still see their father in fragments, in the way his eyes soften when they laugh, in the way his presence fills a room even without a word spoken. Demi Moore and Emma stand together, proof that love can outlast even the hardest separations. And fans, though heartbroken, hold his films close, replaying the moments when Bruce was larger than life. Yet behind all of it, the truth is simple. Bruce Willis is still here, changed, yes, silenced in ways that hurt, but here. And that presence, however fragile, is enough. So this story is not just about loss. It is about adaptation. It is about love reshaping itself when words fall away. And it is about remembering that even in silence, a person's light can still shine. These stories are not just about the past, they are about your memories too. If you want to keep these voices alive, if you want to walk with us through journeys of heroes, both silent and forgotten, then join us. Just below this video, there's a red button that says subscribe. Click it, and you'll never miss the next story.